Welcome to the Power of Music podcast, brought to you by JM International. Get ready to explore conversations with those making a difference through music.
Hello, and welcome everyone to the JM Jeunesse Musicale podcast, a global network of NGOs that empowers young people through music across all boundaries. Today we're recording from Barcelona, interviewing people that are trying to make a difference through music using technology. We are currently working on JMI's DigiBazaar, which aims to support the music sector's process of digital transformation, moving towards digital working models that support their physical activities. My name is Ricardo, and I'll be your host. And for this episode, I'm joined by Ara Kavonian. Ara is a technology consultant and full-stack developer, serial entrepreneur, and the founder of Soundstage. Thank you so much for joining me here, Ara. I'd like to know what has been your journey towards Soundstage and what has been your road to the music industry.
Okay, that's interesting. The road to music, actually, I think that's the better question because that's where it all kind of started. So I've been a huge fan of electronic music. I grew up in Los Angeles, and we had this big burgeoning electronic music scene starting around 2009, where things really blew up. Before that, I was big into hip hop, and 2009, I started hearing all these incredible sounds. I was at that age where your friends take you to festivals and what have you. And I was, I was around this circuit of these, we'll just call them sort of transformational festivals, which are really interesting places. One of my favorites is called Lightning in a Bottle. And going to these festivals, they basically, they create these very sort of, basically they're creative experiences where music is the main attraction, but they also have all of this art. And going to these festivals was very inspirational to me because of the music, because of the art. For many years, I'd been working as a sort of technology consultant, doing entrepreneurial stuff as well. And even though I had like this huge passion for music, I never actually thought that I could be a music creator. So like I'd go to these festivals, I'd enjoy the music, I'd love it, and I'd be so impressed by the performers, and I thought, wow, what does it take to do that, and like that's incredible, and I thought I couldn't, and I never would be able to, and it's kind of like your opportunity for that has passed. But as I was more and more exposed to it, I thought, I love this stuff, and like it. In a strange way, it started changing me, and I decided, I wanted more. I wanted to be more in contact with music. In my younger years, I had played the violin, like when I was 11 for like 4 years. But since then, I hadn't done anything, and I decided that, I wanted to just play around with music as a hobbyist. One thing led to another, and at one point, my family moved away from Los Angeles when I was 30, so I'm 40 now. I moved to Barcelona, and I started dabbling with music production and DJing. The music that I liked was a very different scene. As you know, Europe and the US, they tend to gravitate to different sounds when it comes to electronic music. And so I really missed the scene that I sort of grew up with. And I got inspired with this idea of, basically, hey, I'd like to throw a party. I'm not a promoter. I'm not going to be able to make the numbers work. But I'd still like to throw a party, and I'd like to find somebody to play this party that has the sounds that I love, and share that with my friends here because they've never heard this stuff. And being that, my background was technology, I immediately thought, okay, how can I use technology? Well, geez, we've got amazing video conferencing technology. What if we use that for music to have an artist appear in my living room, on my television, and and we can see the artist and talk to the artist, and the artist can play music directly for us as if the artist was physically present there. That was the seed for the soundstage idea. I didn't act on it for a number of years, but the idea would never, it would never leave me. And eventually I thought, okay, I'm going to do this, right? So being a complete outsider to the music industry, knowing nothing about the mechanics of the music industry, having no contacts, no context, the naivety of the entrepreneur, which is how a lot of cool things happen in the world, is naive entrepreneurs that don't know what they're signing up for. I took a whack at it and I started Soundstage. This was in 2019. And I've been CEO of Soundstage since. It's gone through an interesting journey, several pivots. But for all intents and purposes, I'm a music industry outsider, and just sort of carved my way in with an idea and passion.
I remember that the first time we talked, and this is about 2 years ago, maybe even more than that, probably like 3 years ago. Actually, no, it was pre-pandemic even. So
yeah. No, I think when you and I met was during the pandemic.
You pitched the idea also with another aspect. You said there's quite a lot of artists that maybe are in the US or in Europe or wherever that have a substantial, very solid fan base, but not big enough to go on tour to like various US places. But they do have like 20 there, 10 there.
Yep.
And seeing that the last episodes with some of the other people that dabble into tech also was about what can the impact be for beginning artists, aspiring artists that are building their fan bases.
When I started Soundstage, obviously this was pre-pandemic, we were developing this idea of teleporting artists and using this virtual conferencing technology we built to basically have, fans book artists directly for their private parties. So, an artist that, like you say, might have 1,000 true fans could monetize them directly because those fans, obviously, they have a lot of love for the artist, and the artist might not have a strong enough geographic footprint in a given region where venues are likely to book him or her. But the fans certainly would. And a fan can throw a party with just half a dozen friends and make it worth their while to book this private show. So that's what we were focused on. Think of an emerging artist with 2,000 SoundCloud followers. And one of the followers like, hey, would you play for my birthday? Here's $300. That's a big win-win. The value exchange there is enormous. The musician can do it from their own home, and the fan can just throw their little party, turn on, their little Philips Hue lights and a projector and invite friends, and it's a party, right? It's a private concert. That was moving along pretty nicely. We threw a few events. We recorded all that stuff. It was cool. We were excited about raising some investment to scale up the operation. Pandemic hit, and that's where the catch-22 comes is, we had this thing that at sort of face value looks like a live stream, but it's not, because it was real-time, fully interactive. It's like natural human interaction both ways. But so many of the music brands and actors flocked to live streaming, and the entire industry was like, oh, COVID, we have to reinvent ourselves, and this is what the music industry is good at. We reinvent ourselves, and we are innovative, and we're very creative, and we're going to embrace this new technology. We're going to embrace this challenge, and virtual concerts. They started using this word, virtual concerts, and live streaming concerts, and there was this saturation of live streams, and all this money moving into the same arena, which for us, unfortunately, you would think that, hey, this is great. You've got this amazing thing for it that's perfect for the pandemic, but not the case, because ours wasn't meant to be, hey, you sit behind a computer and you watch a live stream with a delay. Ours was meant to be a social experience. You're physically there with your friends. You're hugging each other, and you're having a toast with the artist that's on the screen, and it's real time, and it's there's dancing, right? It's real. And of course, with the restrictions, that was not doable at all. And even trying to position it for post-pandemic, or thinking a little bit further down the road, saying, hey, well, when the restrictions start to ease up, this paradigm could be really good, because maybe the restrictions are like, hey, you can have 20 people at your house. Okay, well, that could be viable. But it was impossible to cut through the noise. And anytime we would try to sort of position our technology in front of industry players, they just saw a live stream, and it was impossible to communicate the difference between what we had and what a live stream was. Eventually, like they say, if you can't beat them, join them. So we said, okay, let's pivot, and we'll do something in live streaming. We'll take a slightly different approach, because you've got to differentiate yourself. I was never huge on the value proposition of live streams. That's why we didn't do live streams. Live streams are just, the value of, what's the value of live in the case of a live stream, unless there's true interaction in both directions, and a chat box isn't quite that. And I understood this early on, and that's why I was always skeptical about what the industry was doing in the broader sense, and how they were approaching live streams. This notion that they would be able to charge, I don't know, $10 for a ticket to a live stream, kind of like as if it's like a real concert, seemed a little naive to me. And so we thought, okay, well, can't be giving live streams away for free. Seeing a lot of low quality live streaming happening. I mean, that's just the oversaturation, bedroom DJ sets left and right, big artists, small artists, everything in between. And it did a lot of damage to artists' brands. It did a lot of damage to, fans who were just underwhelmed with the experience. And, the ROI wasn't there for anybody. And I thought, okay, well, what we'll do something different. We're going to fuse something. Imagine Twitch, but sort of cross it over with like a Kickstarter or a GoFundMe. So the artist could essentially announce that they're planning to do a live stream. Fans could donate to basically gain access to the live stream. It wasn't the ticket. You didn't pay a certain amount. You just donated as little as a euro or $1. And then there was a goal that the artist was trying to reach, and a percentage of those proceeds would be given to a charity. But the live stream wouldn't happen until the goal was reached, just like with Kickstarter. And the backers of the live stream would, of course, gain access to the live stream, but then there were other perks, just like with Kickstarter. So if you kind of go above and beyond the minimum donation, you'll be given more exclusive access, or one-on-one time with the artist, meet and greets, whatever. That was our approach. We built a really cool platform. That's when you and I met. I approached you trying to get your support to sort of recruit some artists, which was pivotal for us. And we had a great series of sort of starter concerts there. Unfortunately, we quickly found out that live streaming it was a bloodbath. It was a bloodbath for us. It was a bloodbath for everyone else in the industry. And we certainly didn't have the financial muscle to just toe that line indefinitely. So I think it was a wise decision to pull the brakes on that relatively quickly. And that fortunately also paved the way for further innovation and reflection and thinking, okay, this isn't it. So what is it? And that brought us to our current offering, which is this really cool metaverse platform, virtual concerts platform, what we call our sound clubs, which are they're 3D spaces where basically musicians can host all kinds of events with their fans. And rather than, people being avatars, it's actual human faces. So the avatars are you on your webcam, and as you move around this space, we're preserving that human interactivity, which was really, which was our origin story. I mean, the very first version of Soundstage, that's what it was all about, was, hey, fans get to meet and hang out with the artist, and it's a human thing, and it's two-way, and it's real time. We were just able to sort of iterate it into I think, far more capable medium that allows fans to connect from anywhere in the world and join the artist in this 3D space. And it's a pretty amazing experience compared to much of what's out there. And it's the result of all of these difficult pivots and lessons learned. And yeah, the pandemic was not kind to us, but in a sense it was kind to us, because we wouldn't be here if we hadn't gone through that.
And I know this is a mean question of sorts, but can you tell me what is the big difference? And I know you have to experience it, so you have to be in one of the sound clubs, but can you kind of talk us through what's the difference between metaverse and live stream and what you've built? Because there is a big difference, because I've experienced it.
Yeah, well, the biggest difference is a live stream, you're just a passive observer. There's a video being played, and whether it's live or not is of little consequence, because it's just a one-way broadcast. There's a significant delay on it. Your interaction, if any, happens through a chat box, but it's very hard for, a performer to be monitoring and engaging a chat box when they're actually performing a show. So that's kind of the obvious limitations of live streams. What we have is essentially an experience that mimics a real-world concert or a real-world nightclub, where you're in a 3D space. The musician is also there with the fans. The interaction is bi-directional. It's real time. They're actually there. They're talking to you. You can move around, talk to people in the back of the club. Using spatial audio, it very much mimics the audio mechanics of a real venue. So in that sense, it basically, it aims to replicate real world events. Of course, it's never going to be as cool as being at the club, but it's the next best thing. And that interaction is really what makes it so special. The fact that you go into these spaces and it feels social, it feels human, and it can't be done with these other sort of virtual concerts, like these in-game virtual concerts. We've seen things like Minecraft concerts or Fortnite concerts, which, it's cool, but there's how can I put this? They're still games, and this feels a lot more real, authentic. And when you experience one of these and you leave afterwards, you're left with this feeling of, hey, I met this artist that I love, that I've been listening to for so long. I actually met the artist, and it leaves like a residual, like, like the next day after, like, you go to a really cool show and like you wake up and you're thinking of the show you went to. You get that with Soundstage. You're like, wow, yesterday that was so cool, and I can't wait for the next one.
During the time of you starting this and pivoting, we talked, well, sometimes weekly or every 2 weeks, or quite a lot. And I know it wasn't always easy, because I never realized how hard it is from somebody outside of the music industry to kind of break into that and then, get the attention that your product deserved. How did you stay motivated, and how did you keep going?
Well, you're right in that it's very difficult, for someone that's not from the industry to try to come in here into this space and disrupt, if you will, or just, build any kind of business. In my case, I think what kept me going, obviously, and I think this is true for most music industry entrepreneurs and professionals, it's passion for the space. But, even passion can only take you so long when you're struggling to pay bills and you you're enduring certain hardships, it gets to a point where that might not be enough. I think for me, it was the fact that I was just so hyper aware of how amazing this technology is and how the rest of the industry hadn't caught on to it. Frankly, still hasn't. So it's really cool in that sense. And it wasn't just that I was blown away by it. I think whenever I managed to put it in front of people, the reactions that they would have were like, wow, they were blown away by it. And so I was like, okay, yeah, you can't stop. You can't, right? Like if it's not my imagination now, it's other people that, have just met me. They've just experienced it and they're blown away by it. Musicians that are blown away by it. And it's like, okay, yeah, you just got to find a way to keep your head above water and keep going and keep going. Not that it makes it any easier, but it keeps you going.
And then, of course, about a year ago, more than a year ago, I think, Audius, one of the big blockchain Web3 music players, streaming service, acquired Soundstage.
Yeah.
How's that been?
That was really cool. It was unexpected, honestly. So Audius knew about Soundstage probably right around the time we originally launched we'll just call it the alpha version of our metaverse, our Sound Clubs experience. We'd been put on their radar through mutual contacts, and they had experienced, some of their management had come into a couple of our events, and they really, really liked what they'd seen. We had explored, we had sort of teased the idea of, when Soundstage is ready, we might be able to explore some synergies because they really, really liked what we had here. But of course, they were so busy with the launch of their own streaming service and so much going on that we didn't reconnect for, I don't know, it must have been like 8 months. When we did reconnect, Soundstage had already matured quite a bit, and they were really excited at that point about all these things we might do together. And unexpectedly, they came with an acquisition offer, and I just given the sort of the makeup of the Audius ecosystem and their sort of approach, sort of this grassroots community building approach that they take to help foster emerging artists, I couldn't help but feel that Soundstage was just the perfect home for Soundstage. Soundstage, everything we've ever developed really has always felt to me like its biggest, it provided maximum amount of value to emerging artists, that it was being created for emerging artists. And so that was very attractive to me in terms of, allowing Audius to acquire Soundstage, because I felt it was just, peanut butter and jelly in that sense, like the perfect fit. It's been, I think it was October of last year that the acquisition was formally executed and we announced it. Since then, it's been great. We've done, smaller events. There's been a lot of integration work to sort of integrate Audius services into Soundstage. We've got a really cool platform now, and we're now starting to turn our attention towards, we'll just call it customer success, empowering musicians to adopt Soundstage, because the thing with the sound clubs is they're so robust and there are so many different ways to use them that it requires a little effort to educate artists in terms of how to use them, how to leverage them, and how to get the most of them. So now that we're done with a lot of the sort of technological work and the product work, we're turning our attention now towards that customer success stuff.
What I think is an interesting perspective that we can get from your side is that we've been talking with some of the previous guests that were on this podcast about how some people tend to have a big voice about certain topics that they don't really understand yet. And especially there's some artists that jump on new technology and say, oh yeah, now I'm going to make my own NFT, or now I'm going to AI everything ever made, ever possible, which then in the end has quite a harmful effect on the kind of trajectory of this new technology being actually of utility for the industry, which is a shame. And I'm curious, how is it to be on the other side? So being the smaller voice that actually has a good idea, but is overshadowed by all these artists that, oh yeah, we're going to do this live stream and we're going to do this. And what can we learn from that looking into the future now, for example, with AI and with blockchain?
Well, what it's like, I would say, is it's difficult. It's painful because I think entrepreneurs tend to invest a lot of mental energy to think critically about problems and solutions, and a lot of times they understand the domain. They understand the problem in a more precise manner than a lot of other industry actors, because especially I think with entertainment industries, we are used to having these big voices, and they're obviously they're the influencers of the space. And if you're in Hollywood, you've got your actors, and in music you've got your musicians, and of course they're probably the most important actors that there are. And in terms of producing content, certainly they are the masters. There's no question there. But a lot of times I think what happens is they get invited into projects or ventures, or they themselves get inspired to sort of be more than just musicians or actors. And I think that that's very respectable. But what happens is that they already have this huge voice, and that voice will quickly drown out the real innovators. And I don't mean this sort of, I don't want to sound, I guess, bitter in saying this, but the truth is that, we've seen so many of these big names come out with, hey, I'm starting this amazing thing. I personally, I've seen these things that they've, and I don't want to put myself in the crossfires here, so I don't want to sort of single anyone out, but I've seen this time and again where an artist might come out and they're basically they're taking the spotlight away with an NFT project or a live stream platform that's going to transform everything. And, they're getting all this attention. The press is like flocking, managers are flocking, the industry's flocking towards these big names. And there's really nothing particularly special there. And of course, the real innovators are not given an opportunity because they can't cut through the noise. It's impossible to compete with that in many cases. So, whether it's artists or existing brands, it also works with existing brands. And again, I don't want to put myself in the crossfires, but established industry brands that come out with an offering that's basically just playing into the current trend, and they don't really know what they're doing. I mean, you can just see that they don't know what they're doing, but because they have that brand power, they saturate the airwaves, they saturate the streaming services, video streaming, whatever it is, and they're in your face and they're everywhere. And then they do it poorly, and all of a sudden they've caused a lot of damage because it didn't make business sense for them. It didn't make them the money that it was supposed to. Consumers are now turned off to the idea. Music fans are turned off to the idea. And other artists are also turned off to the idea because, the entire sort of, the entire space, it effectively got oversaturated with a poorly executed vision. the appetite that artists might have to explore these paradigms with the next wave of entrance into the space effectively falls to zero. Now, I can speak from experience. The live streaming thing, for example, everybody was using the word virtual concerts. And I remember how all of these industry research organizations, like Gartner, for example, they would release these studies saying that, the live stream space, the music live stream space is slated to grow exponentially over the next coming years. Like in 2023, which is where we are now, it was supposed to be like, I don't know how many billions of dollars worth. Like it's like there were going to be virtual concerts with live streaming everywhere. Like the game had completely changed, and the whole thing fell flat. And so the fallout from that is actually that you approach, or we approach managers or artists now, and we're like, hey, we've got this thing, virtual concerts. They don't want to know anything about it because everybody's burned out from it. Even this far into it, after, we'll just say, I don't know, a year and a half after the pandemic basically tapered off with live streams, it's like live streams are going to change everything, and everybody's going to be live streaming, and the next generation of music lovers will probably be just as likely to watch a concert on a live stream as if they went to a real show. It's like, no, that all of that was nonsense. Mm-hmm. And then we had the same thing happen with NFTs. NFTs are going to change everything, and the royalty models are about to change in a major way. Musicians are now going to start monetizing directly with fans. They no longer need Spotify. They no longer need this. They no longer need that. Now it's been a couple of years with the NFT thing. And yeah, there have been a couple of winners, sort of, because they were the first big ambassadors or advocates. And, as hype often goes, it bubbles up quickly and it benefits a handful of actors, and then everybody else is left trying to pick up the scraps. And I feel like that's kind of what happened with the NFT space. I mean, we still have a lot of voices talking about NFTs and music, and it's like I have yet to see a compelling case. I've yet to see a single compelling case of NFTs being used in music. I'm big in music. I own one NFT that I purchased just to kind of, test it out, but not because I thought that it offered some incredible value. And now the industry's kind of scratching its head, trying to figure out, okay, yeah, we've been so bullish on this NFT thing, but where's the money, right? And so I think the shine has quickly worn off. I'm not saying that, there isn't place for NFTs moving forward, but, the industry has to really stop doing this thing where it's like, oh, we all rush to this next big thing blindly, and we prop it up and we put it on a pedestal, and everybody like drinking the same Kool-Aid, but nobody's actually stopping to think critically. And nobody's saying like, okay, let's actually try to think about these numbers. Like, where's the money going to come from, and why is somebody actually going to pay for that? And is that sustainable? Will it last beyond the initial sort of trend that we're seeing right now? Are the fundamentals really strong there? And I think that at least for these two cycles that I just cited, these two trends with the live streamings and the NFTs, they've largely been way off the mark. We're now seeing something, I think it's similar but different with the AI thing. With the AI thing, I think we're seeing something very exciting, conflicting, terrifying. A lot of voices once again speaking. I think this time it's a little different because it's not quite clear what it is. NFTs were kind of confusing, but NFTs were not really threatening the creators in any way. And they certainly weren't half as menacing to, like, let's just say the major record labels. So now this AI paradigm is very, it's obviously the big thing now, but at least not everybody is equally as optimistic about what it means for the industry. Still, you do see certain voices come out and try to play the same game, as if they've got it figured out and they already known. And, you know, like me personally, I live and breathe technology. As an entrepreneur, I'm always, you know, interested in technology and how it can disrupt and how it can, and AI is obviously nothing new to me. I've been following it for a while, and I've got so many questions and I have no answers. And already I see, you know, artists coming out and like they're embracing AI. Well, what does that mean really? You know, we have so many questions, so many things to solve, yet you have certain voices that are, you know, propping it up and embracing it like without any reservation, as if they already see the future and they know exactly where this is all headed. And there are those that follow those voices again. And I find that, I don't know, it's hard for me to reconcile that and how I feel about it, because it's like, you know, I think we all need to be a little more humble, especially given our collective track record over the last 4 or 5 years and what's transpired and how off the mark we've been on at least one occasion. So I think it would be wise to maybe dial down expectations, to not be so easily wooed by major voices in the industry, and to proceed cautiously. Be critical.
Some anecdotes about the 2 previous cases that I'd like to share is that in the beginning of the pandemic, the artists that I worked for directly got a lot of offers from many live stream platforms and new solutions. And I know there was like Treehouse, and I don't even know what they're called because they're all forgotten. I don't even know. Maestro, which is a cool platform, but hard to make work for just a single artist to get the content running 24 hours. And I remember that at some point, 2 of my artists, a duo, did a show for this new platform. It was really super cool and was going to change everything. And we went in there, and one of them wasn't able to log in, and they were playing a show, or like it was a pre-recorded, let's be honest, a pre-recorded live stream. And then they were in there, one couldn't log in, and then there was like a weird that you could hear all the people like talking through the set, but way too loud, and they couldn't hear each other because it was just one kind of noise of like, it was so strange. I was like, what are we doing? And that was when I thought, okay, live streaming, that's dead. And then with NFTs, in the beginning, we were quite excited about the potential of making things valuable again. That just sounded like, okay, we can do something cool with that. And I actually ran a focus group for an NFT platform. And that was quite interesting because there was a lot of young artists with really cool ideas saying like, okay, I wish I could do this. I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. And the answer always was, well, we can't yet, but that's cool. So there's lots of cool ideas, but not the functionality yet. And I remember that some other artists that I worked for were invited to do a show in Miami where they would sell an NFT. And the business proposition was this. They would do a live stream on a 360-degree screen in an art gallery. Then they would sell the NFT, which would also guarantee access to the Floyd Mayweather, Logan Paul or Jake Paul, whatever, boxing match, and a signed pair of gloves. And the special guest of the night was a princess of a Central African nation. I don't remember which one. I think Congo. And that was the moment I realized this doesn't make any freaking sense. It's dead. It just didn't make any sense anymore. And I think for me, with all these projects, whether it's AI, which is still very, what is it actually? We don't know what's going to be. NFTs, live streaming, whatever, blockchain. The question is, would this project, the concept behind it, be a cool idea if it didn't have the technology underneath it. If you think, oh, this is a really cool idea and the technology facilitates this idea, then it's just a tool to a cool idea. But if it's without the technology, it would just be a moi idea with some technology, then it doesn't do anything.
Well, yeah, I think the example you gave a second ago is a lot of times is what happens with these really cutting edge ideas, right? Like the NFT. I would say the NFT is very unique in that sense because nobody fully it doesn't have any innate characteristics. It's whatever you want it to be, and because it's whatever you want it to be, you get all these silly ideas where people are just throwing things at the wall and trying to package it up and embellish it and see if it sticks. But there's no critical thinking going into the underlying value. Like, does this make sense? Do the fans of this, what connection is there between the fans of this musician and boxing, right? Even for the sort of musical experiences that they would try to package up, oftentimes the question is, okay, well, is this a cool experience? Is this something that the fan actually wants? And then, of course, all of the other questions around that. How long is this experience redeemable for? Is it transferable? How do you deal with all that nuance? And, a lot of times nobody had the answers. And so they're just minting these NFTs and sticking some description on it. And then later on, the sort of the fallout from that plays out, and somebody's upset, and somebody overpaid, whatever. I guess. What was the question? Okay.
You kind of answered this question already, but maybe let's revisit it because I think it's important now with the emergence of AI and probably technology just going to grow exponentially. So we're going to have the new thing already.
Yeah.
We don't even know. I was just talking to Niall. It's really hard to program for a future music conference because you don't know in 6 months what's going to be the next big thing, but you want to have that on the stage because everything is moving so fast. So I think you already kind of gave the answer, but maybe let's revisit. What would your advice be? How can we approach this that we can actually reap the benefits and see through the clutter?
I think in the case of AI, some people already have, I think, some sort of sense. And again, I think it's not directly, we're going to see like cool music that is threatening artists' livelihoods, or musicians are now licensing their music to AI, and AI is putting out all these amazing EPs, and artists are getting paid for the music that is being released that was trained on their music. I think that just the legal and technological obstacles that need to be solved for that vision to manifest are so massive that, I hear the voices now, and me personally, I'm already very immediately skeptical towards that. I mean, I've seen some of these AI algorithms do their thing. The music that comes out, sure, it's not particularly compelling. Can't rule out that in 6 months it won't be amazing. If I had to guess, I think that, yes, it will eventually be amazing. But by the time it is that amazing that it's actually threatening musicians' actual livelihood, if these other obstacles aren't solved for, which are not insignificant, and I've heard certain industry speakers downplay the challenge numerous times, which is annoying to me because it's disingenuous. What it takes to, for example, identify that a song is AI generated, whose IP it's infringing on, which music it was trained on, and these I've heard numerous industry players suggest that, oh yeah, that's easy. To me, it seems very, very challenging. And I say this because, when ChatGPT came out, I remember a research organization coming out and saying that, it's impossible to detect plagiarism on ChatGPT. Like, students would turn in homework assignments, and it was just impossible to know if it was done by ChatGPT or by the student or by a human or by a machine. So I think the same is going to happen with music. So either there's going to have to be some mechanism to certify, I think, human produced tracks, and those are the ones that make it onto the streaming services, or we're just not going to be able to wrangle this one anytime soon. So I don't think that this idea that AI is now going to become the creator with the on its own, and rights being paid to artists. I don't think that that's where we're headed, but I do think that there will be very successful uses of AI for, we'll just call it commercial sounds, things that you might need in advertisements, elevator music, whatever. So there are good opportunities. I think in the spaces that don't directly affect, we'll just call it the record labels. Of course, AI brings threats to everyone. There are sound engineers and music producers that are not, your major artists, or they're not trying to make a living off of their music per se, by releasing music, but obviously they're making music for movies. They're making music for documentaries and TV shows, and we might see penetration there, I think.
All right, if people want to link up with you or want to know more about Soundstage, or just have a chat with you, where can they find you? Where can they find Soundstage?
The easiest place is probably the Audius Discord server. We have a Soundstage channel there, and I'm there all the time. So anyone interested in what we're doing, come in, say hello. Would love to meet you.
As always, the last question. What is the power of music?
For me, it's inspiration. Music is the one thing that, it really is a drug. When times are tough, when you're sad, when you're upset, when you're, going through the hardships of life, which everybody does, right? Music has this power to just completely change that, and no substances need to be ingested. And it can do it so quickly. That's the thing that's so incredible about it is, sometimes it can accompany you and help you by resonating with your mood, and other times it can simply change your mood around and inspire you to turn up, to face your challenges, to overcome your obstacles and overcome your fears. I think that's a big one. So I think that's the power of music for me, is its power to inspire, which it has done for me, and I know it does for millions of others.
Thank you so much, Ara.
Thank you, Ricardo.
Thank you very much for listening. If you want more information about JM or would like to get involved, visit www.jmi.net, where you can find more information and look for national member organizations. Or go to www.mubazar.com to get an overview of all the amazing opportunities for musicians. It would mean a lot to us if you could give us 1 minute of your time and review and rate this podcast. And in case you have any suggestions, please feel free to reach out to us through the JMI social.